We know now the benefits of recycling. Biodegradability, carbon footprint, composting are all words and phrases most of us are familiar with. On today's show, we're taking things a step further. We're talking about environmental sustainability and steps you and your team can take to make your practice and our planet a better place. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Ortho Thrive. I'm your host, Richie Gurzon. Today we have Dr. Alyssa Shaik joining us. Alyssa is a practicing orthodontist in Pueblo, Colorado, and is here to talk all about ortho environmental sustainability. Alyssa, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's just hear a little bit about your background and experience. Tell us about your journey.
Sure. So I grew up in Michigan, a little bit north of Detroit, so surrounded by water. And then I completed dental school in Detroit, lived there for a while, did a 1-year AEGD residency, and then studied orthodontics in Colorado, and I've stayed here ever since.
Yeah, I've heard so many great things about Colorado. I could see how it would do that. Charleston does that to people as well. There's a few really amazing places in the U.S. like that.
Yeah.
So for anyone watching who might not know, can you just kind of define environmental sustainability for us?
Sure. There's lots of different definitions for sustainability. It's definitely something that, is challenging to get it into one definition. The one definition that a lot of people do refer to is the UN World Commission on Environment and Development's definition.
Yeah.
And that I can read it word for word for you. It's
Sure. Okay.
Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So, it's really about, it's a lot to dive into.
I mean, basically, you're not hurting the future by what you're doing today, right?
Correct. Yep. You're trying to make it the same or better, but we really just need to get to the same. Get to that place first before we could really dive into regeneration. So
yeah, I got you. All right. So why do you think it's important? What would you say then?
So I think it's important, just especially from a healthcare standpoint, we want to make sure that we've got clean resources, clean water, clean air to breathe, just a non-toxic environment. So that way future generations can thrive. And we don't come up with some kind of public health crisis.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree to that. Who doesn't want clean air and clean water now and forever? All right. So can you talk about sustainability and the importance of implementing sustainable practices in a dental practice? That's interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So sustainability, first of all, has multiple components to it. There's the human component, an economic component, and an ecologic component as well. So, what we have control over the most is probably the ecologic component or environmental part of that. So again, as healthcare providers, we really care about the health of our patients, the health of our community. And we're really focused on that when the patient's in the chair, but maybe we don't think about it so much as to what we're throwing out, or, do we think about where does our medical waste go? How does that get handled? What could we do a little bit better? So I think it's not just on us in the healthcare field. It's, our duty as humans to think about that and what are the little changes we can do to help keep our environment sustainable for the future.
Okay, so let's talk about a little bit specifically the environmental footprint of braces. What kind of footprint do we leave there?
Yeah, so I think that answer really would vary from doctor to doctor and what their processes involve. So, we've got a lot of stainless steel brackets. Typically arch wires are ending up in the sharps containers. So what we're throwing out is, mostly medical waste when it comes to braces. And I don't think it's so much the appliance that we're using. It's how efficient are we with that appliance? Thinking about the other effects of it. So, you think about braces, they have to be shipped to your office.
Yeah.
So just thinking about that, do you reuse your brackets when you're repositioning brackets? Are you cranking on those tie wings and you can't reuse them anymore. So, I mean, we're just talking about little brackets here, but if you can think about small changes you can make to reduce your waste, that's always going to be helpful. I think a lot of people, they say, okay, well, braces are obviously going to be more environmentally friendly compared to aligners. You know, that's a big debate, big hot topic right now.
Yeah, that was my next question. How are they different than aligners? What other kind of footprint do they have?
Right. And so I really think it's difficult to compare the two. It's like comparing apples and oranges. Obviously, it's very easy to think about what's happening to our clear aligners. We can't recycle them because a lot of them are just different types of polymers in there. And so it's not, you can't just recycle it. It'd be nice if we had some kind of recycling program for them, but it doesn't sound like that's happened yet.
Are there any other aligner brands that are more sustainable that are making it a priority?
Yeah, so I'm actually working with Clear Blue Smiles right now, and I've come up with some sustainable development goals for our company.
Okay.
The aligners themselves, no, they're not special at all, and we recognize that nothing's perfect when it's coming to plastic and recycling these. So we don't have a method yet for recycling these aligners. However, that said, we're working with the Ocean Blue project to see if there's a way we could have patients mail back their aligners to upcycle for certain things. We're working with them on that. No clear answers yet, but that'd be something for the future for sure.
I could see people doing that if there was an outlet for them. Why wouldn't they? It'd be so simple. Okay.
Yeah, that would be nice. But another thing you could think about with clear aligners, and this is like if you have your in-house aligners versus Invisalign, one thing you can think about is only producing a certain set of aligners for your patient, making sure that they're tracking properly, and then scanning them again. So that way you're not ending up with 40, 50 aligners and then needing a mid-course correction. So that's one way you could reduce plastic waste if you are doing your own aligners in-house. Just a thought.
That makes sense. So what are just some other things people can do to create a more sustainable dental practice?
Well, so I came up with some different goals of what you could do.
Sure.
Just things you could start today that really don't involve investing a lot of money into them.
That's a good start. I'm sure that's one of the first things people think. How much is this going to cost me, right?
Yes. There's always that green tax on things, so it's a scary and daunting sounding thing to try to make your office more sustainable. But in reality, any small change we make is going to provide some kind of positive change. And so you're not harming anything by just observing and thinking creatively about ways that you could make small improvements that definitely don't cost any money.
So you have a little list. Do you want to share any of those things with us?
Sure. I think, how you could really get started is start talking to your teams. Chances are somebody on your team is going to be really excited about sustainability or, up on that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so someone might want to help you take this on. But one good starting point is just to observe. Just observe what gets thrown away, what ends up in your medical waste. Are you seeing certain patterns or certain things where well, we really don't need to throw this away. And just monitoring that. You can't really make any improvements without measuring in the first place. So how you could get started with that is think about, first of all, what can you reuse in your office? Now, I know we're healthcare providers and a lot of things are single use, so that's obviously going to be challenging, but maybe not necessarily what we're using in people's mouths. It could be what's in your lobby, what's in your break room.
For sure. Just the normal office supplies in general.
Yeah, definitely. And so the best thing that you could do is reuse it. Buy something that's reusable. You can just clean it out, reuse it. The next best thing would be recycling something properly or composting. There's a big misconception that if something is labeled as biodegradable, it's going to just biodegrade on its own, no matter how you throw it out.
That is my perception. That's not true.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
it depends on the product. Yeah.
Sure.
So there's going to be certain things that are going to still take decades to biodegrade if it's just in a landfill, because landfills may not have that specific type of bacteria or that specific environment for something to biodegrade properly.
Sure. Yeah.
At the claimed degradation time. So it's definitely important to look at, are there things that we could compost? And now there are companies that you can use with your office to recycle and compost things properly. So that would be the next best thing if you can't reuse something. And then the last thing, obviously, is just reduce the waste that we do produce.
Yeah.
So just try to get creative with that. And so this is all just stuff that you can think about and brainstorm with your team. And they will probably have ideas that, I wouldn't even think of,
Yeah, right. That makes sense. So are there any like really more complicated things that maybe you should think about doing in the future, or try to like make a goal for the next year, but like you can't quite do it immediately?
Yeah. There's a lot of like small changes that you can make to your office just by reducing energy. When you first start thinking about this, think about like at lunch, do you leave all the lights on out in the clinic? Just turning the lights off. That's something that's pretty easy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Making sure like your HVAC filters are always clean. That's very simple. Decorating your office with house plants instead of, fake plants. It helps clean the air, looks nice, and it's not something that you're just going to throw away at the end of the season.
I like that one. Make it more natural, real inside.
Yeah. Right. Okay. You could also incentivize your team to walk or bike, take public transit to work. I don't know if there's a way that you could work that into their paycheck, some kind of bonus or something. And
so that's interesting. You have any other ways that you think get your team involved in something like this? Because it seems like buy-in is critical for it all to work, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you just got to tell them what you want to do. Probably finding that person that's interested in it can kind of be the cheerleader for the movement, I think would be very helpful. That makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And then other things that you could do in the future would be to change up your lobby area. Think about TVs. I mean, it's electricity that we're using, but how many people are bringing their cell phone, their iPad, whatever to your lobby? You probably don't need that TV anymore. And maybe think about putting it in a consultation room where you could blow up patients' pictures. Now mom can see exactly what's going on with their kids' teeth. It just might be a better way to use what we already have. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So why do you think it's taken so long for people to start talking about this topic when it comes to like dental and orthodontic offices, practices?
Yeah. So I think it's encouraging because I'm seeing this more and more on more orthodontist websites where they have some frequently asked questions like, how are we helping the environment? I think that's becoming more common. It's still probably not common enough. And I think it's because there's just this perception that it's going to cost more money.
Yeah.
If I get something that's going to break down more naturally, it's going to be more expensive, which is probably true. But that's where I think if we can get this conversation bigger, and eventually it can get to bigger dental manufacturers, then we can have these options that have they're just more broad and readily available for us.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, if you create a demand, service providers are going to respond to that. So if we want more environmentally sustainable products, then they'll be made, right?
Right, exactly.
I was reading something about digital rather than regular traditional x-rays. How can that help with sustainability?
Oh, definitely. Well, number one, there's less radiation involved with digital x-rays. So that's one plus for sure. And then, the little lead foil that's inside of film, that's gone when you have a digital x-ray. So.
There's been plenty of bad press about lead, so I think we can agree with that.
So that's a pretty easy no-brainer. And I think most offices now are just moving in that direction, thankfully. But, if you want to take it one step further over the next few years, investing in some kind of electronic health record versus paper charts over time, that's definitely going to save you space and paper waste.
Yeah, I gotcha.
So do your chart audits.
Yeah, I think everything should be digital, but I'm a digital marketing person, so I guess. Not everything, of course. I like to meet people in person. So just tell me about the project. How did you come up with it? What is your involvement in it? Like, just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
Yeah. So, I'm not an expert at all in this field. I don't have a formal education in environmental sciences or anything. I'm just interested in it. I watched this documentary back in dental school that just made me feel awful, as a lot of these documentaries do, unfortunately. But what they found on it was looking at Midway Atoll, which is out in the Pacific, and it's there's a lot of plastic that washes up on the shore there, and they found that a lot of dental hygiene products were the biggest. That was mostly what was there.
Really? I would never have guessed that, considering everything, all the water bottles, for instance.
Yeah. Now this was, I believe it came out in 2013, maybe.
Sure.
But at the time it was in a lot of the deceased birds and animals, they found toothbrushes inside of them. So that got me thinking and piqued my interest several years ago, for sure. And then I've just read up on it. I've gotten involved in a lot of sustainable travel. I actually have my own travel agency on the side. So I've really
that's fun. What a fun organization. I might have to talk to you about that. Who doesn't want to travel more?
Right. Yeah. And when that travel picks back up, I am focused on sustainable travel and business travel. So for dentists that want to host CEs or something like that. So
because travel has a huge environmental impact, right? Until they start creating electric jets, I think that's going to be the case, isn't it?
Yes. And it's definitely more focused on carbon in the air versus plastic found in our waterways and things. So
I've always wondered why plastic is still so prevalent, because it seems like we can make plastic or plastic-like products.
Yeah.
I feel like we figured that out, and it's just not happening for whatever reason.
Yes.
But I don't want to get into conspiracy land, but that's my inclination, is something's going on. It's oil, plastic,
Yeah. But thinking about plastic, and, earlier you asked about the footprint of braces. There's all these other components that maybe we don't think about with braces, like your elastic, the ligature ties, all those tabs that we're throwing out. So, I mean, we're all concerned about aligners, throwing those out, but how many of those are we throwing out all the time?
That's true. And I mean, I think an orthodontist or a dentist, they actually have a big reach. A lot of my clients have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000 people on their email list, and they're telling a story. So you could tell, if you're telling a story how you're being sustainable, or you have some sort of event, or, you can encourage sustainable behavior among your patients, I think, and kind of affect your community, because a lot of these doctors, I think they have a good bit of influence over their community. They're very well respected people.
Definitely.
That could be a good way to use your marketing for good, not just growing the practice.
Yeah. One way that you could do that is just have a reusable bag for your oral hygiene products that you're giving away, all those samples. Then patients can take that to the grocery store now, and then you're getting some more exposure.
Oh, I totally agree. From a marketing point of view, I have a nice canvas bag. I still use it from one of our clients, because it's nice enough that it lasts forever. And I use it just to keep cables and stuff in when we're doing digital, like streaming events or something, because I can hold everything there and stuff it in there and it'll never break. But I have other bags. There's no way I could do that, So I totally agree with you. It's a little extra cost up front, but if someone keeps it for 2 or 3 years longer than normally, that's a bunch of free advertising you're getting.
Yeah. And I also wonder, there's a lot of bamboo toothbrush companies. They still quite haven't figured out the bristles, the best way to get that recyclable or compostable.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you could engrave your practice name or something in that wood, you know.
Oh,
Just
that's a good idea.
yeah. And a lot of floss picks and things that you can, just different dental hygiene tools for braces, especially. They're starting to make those out of corn. Still
Oh,
isn't
really? Out of
ideal.
corn.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily biodegradable, but it's more sustainable than plastic. Again, I'm not an expert at that, but more things are starting to move in that direction.
Cool. So if a doctor is kind of interested and just want to keep up with you, you have a Facebook group or something that they can you guys could talk or get together?
I don't have one personally, no, but I know with Clear Blue Smiles, we're just trying to get this conversation going and out to a broader audience. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And then
Perfect.
our sustainability goals and little guidelines are actually going to be on social media. So you can
Okay.
follow us on Facebook. Yeah.
Also, just go to social media, Clear Blue Smiles, and you'll see the goals there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. We just need to get this conversation started. And again, I'd love to talk with some more experts in the field of environmental sciences that could help us out in dentistry and just see how we could get this, instead of a conversation, make it a movement, and make it a way that's accessible for all of us to do, instead of feeling like we're just losing a lot of money.
Yes, I totally agree. And I think dental and orthodontic practices are in a good position to start that kind of movement. So they do have a lot of influence on the community.
Yeah.
All right, Alyssa. Well, it was great talking to you. I actually did learn a good bit that I didn't know. So I really appreciate just my own personal knowledge there.
Yeah.
And keep us up on updates. If anything's happening, we'd love to hear about it and see how you're going, how your mission's going.
All right. Sounds great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. Take it easy.
You too.
Dr. Shaik showed us today how we can make our practices more environmentally sustainable. Shaik gave us some great tips in the short term and the long term to help our future. If you want to be a guest on the show or you know a great idea for an episode, just go to orthothrive.com. If you want to contact me personally, just email me at richard@orthossalesengine.com. Keep grinding, keep thriving, and I'll see you next time.